Elise here at Bowman Library in the Young Adult section with a whole new teen book spotlight. So the theme for this week, I'm super excited about. It's all about nonfiction. And I know some of you are sitting there thinking nonfiction is horrible and it's boring, but guess what? I promise you, it doesn't have to be. And the 6 books I'm going to show you today are some of my personal favorites. I can personally attest that they are all pretty amazing. So the first one today is called The Poisoners Handbook by Deborah Bloom. This book is part true crime, part science, part history of forensic medicine. Goes all the way back into the Jazz Age, 1920s. The most popular method of murdering at that time was using poison because it was basically undetectable. There were no tests available to determine if someone had been poisoned, and a lot of the times it just looked like that person had died from natural causes. So no investigation really happened. When Charles Norris is named chief medical examiner for New York City, though, he decides to do something about this growing problem they're having in New York City with people just murdering each other with poisons, and the birth of forensic medicine happens. Each chapter is named after a type of poison and features a true crime for each, as well as the crime was solved with the development of a detection test. This was so eye-opening. I learned a ton reading this book, and none of it was taught in school or in a textbook, and I could not put this book down. Highly recommended if you like your history with a little bit of like darkness to it. The Poisoner's Handbook by Deborah Bloom. Family Romanov by Candace Fleming. I love Candace Fleming. She is amazing. She writes some of the best nonfiction works, and it doesn't feel like it's nonfiction. You literally open it, you start reading it, and you think you're like in a story, but it's all true. So this one is all about the Romanov family, or as most of us know, it's Anastasia. And if you're anything like me, what I knew about Anastasia came from the cartoon movie called Anastasia, plus some people thought she was still alive and they claimed to be her, and yeah. Well, Candace Fleming takes us into the history of this family and shares everything about their rise and their fall from power. So you start to realize as a reader, though, as you start going through this, why people really didn't like them and why basically their downfall came in a form of a revolution against them by their people. There's so much more that happens that I didn't even know. And one of the things I love about this book is they really do an awesome job of sharing what happens after they get captured and arrested. And I'll give you a hint, they don't get put in jail. They actually get put into these super nice houses, and it's like they're away on vacation for years. Anything by Candace Fleming is going to be amazing. This is one of her best works. Family Romanov, cannot recommend it highly enough. So Sabotage, the mission to destroy Hitler's atomic bomb by Neil Bascom. So, during World War II, Norway was hoping to remain neutral, but in April of 1940, the Nazis show up, invade their ports, and they intend to capture what's called Vemork, which is a location that produces what's called heavy water. You need heavy water to produce an atomic bomb. So the Nazis want to capture this location so they can start making an atomic bomb. The Allies find out about this plan, though, and they decide they need to stop the Nazis from accomplishing their goal and decide to send numerous small teams of soldiers and spies into Norway. And they drop them off at different parts. And each of these teams are on their own. They have zero communication with the other teams or with anyone else, but they have one common goal. Each of these teams have to make their way to Vemork, and they need to sabotage the plan of the Nazis making an atomic bomb. But they also have to do this in a way that they have to escape the country when they're done, and they can't be caught, because if they are caught, They are going to be either put in prison for the rest of their lives or they are going to be executed. This is filled with adventure, suspense, tension. You won't want to put this one down because you want to know what happens to each of these teams. So this is Sabotage by Neil Bascom. Okay, so if you're into some like true crime history, Hunting Charles Manson by Liz Wheel. And I promise you, I will not judge you if you choose to read this book because I read it and I actually really enjoyed it. It's in the late summer of 1969 and there is a murder spree that is taking place in the hills of Los Angeles and no one can make heads or tails of it. This book examines the before, during, and after of the Manson family crimes and how it impacted all aspects of society, from reporting and forensics to how people view crime. This book includes a ton of research, including interviews with members of the Manson family. It has a ton of pictures in it. It's told in chronological order. If you're interested in learning more, this book is perfect as everything is told with factual detail. So it's Hunting Charles Manson. Oh, this is one of my favorite reads I've read in a long time. Okay, if you like true crime, this one I cannot recommend enough. And it is so crazy that you won't believe it's true, but I promise you, it is true. This is American Kingpin by Nick Bilton. So back in 2011, Ross Ulbricht launches a website on the dark web, which allows for an ultimate free market. So it becomes a place where anyone can sell anything, like Amazon, only there's no restrictions. So on this marketplace, people sell and you can buy things such as drugs, weapons, forged passports, counterfeit money, and even human organs. So this website quickly grows into a $1.2 billion business. But it then doesn't take long for government officials to catch on, and they start on a manhunt to find Ross, to arrest him and to shut down the website. But the feds have no idea where to look, and Ross decides it's time for him to disappear and go underground, and it becomes a race against time for both parties. So this is told through 3 points of view. It's told through 2 government officials' points of view, so with the FBI and with U.S. Marshals, as well as with Ross's point of view. Amazing. Cannot recommend this book enough. Could not put it down. Again, you will not believe this actually happened. American Kingpin. And the last one. This one is definitely more of a serious book, but it had to make my list. This is The Only Plane in the Sky by Garrett Graff. This is one of the best books I have probably read in the past couple of years, or possibly ever. Like, I think this will probably make like my top 5, top 10 list forever. The author tells the events of September 11, 2001 through the words and voices of people who lived through that day. So what he does is at the beginning, it's one day, September 11th, chronologically told by people that were there and they lived it. From the pilot of Air Force One to the ticket agent at the airport who checked in the terrorists, everyone provides a different perspective on the events of the day. So many things were eye-opening, and there were so many things that had happened that I had no idea about. I was a high schooler when the events of this day happened, and this book brought me so many more new perspectives and so much new information that I never knew until I opened this book. I cannot recommend this book enough. I also highly, highly recommend the audiobook version of this book. Each of these people tell their story on the audiobook version. Again, one of the best books I have ever read, The Only Plane in the Sky by Garrett Graff. So, hopefully one of these 6 maybe will make you a little more interested in nonfiction, but guess what? If none of those do, we have a ton of nonfiction here at the Bowman Library. So feel free to come on in and we will help you find something that you want to read, that you are going to be interested in. I hope to see you next week for a whole new teen book spotlight with another completely different theme. Have a great week.